All right, we're rolling. Who's ready? Look at this happy dough. That is a happy dough. Look at that thing. A loaf like this is so great because it's perfect for sharing, and that's really at the heart of what challah is, I think. It's a bread that comes to us out of the Jewish tradition of baking. It's traditionally made across the globe by households in celebration of Shabbat. All right, so let's do this mix. I'm thinking about the air temperature in the room. It's a little bit cool, and so I've warmed my water up. I'm using 100-degree water, and I've done enough mixing in here to know that 100 degrees is going to be a pretty good temperature. And I'm going to add my water to the honey and oil. Basically, I'm doing that because it's easier to get it out of the bowl, honestly. So oil, honey, water, salt and yeast. Straight in. And then, and this is important, don't take your eggs straight out of the fridge. For yeasted breads, we want to control the temperature of the dough, right? We want it to feel comfortable. The more comfortable those yeasts feel, the better they'll behave and the better they will do their job, right? So don't throw them into a bowl with cold eggs. It's not an environment they like. We want eggs that are at least at room temperature, and if you don't have them at room temperature, it's okay. Put some hot water in a bowl, put the eggs in there, let them chill out for a little bit. So this recipe is 2 whole eggs plus 1 yolk. And I like to just put the mixing bowl on the scale and go right in. So everything's in. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to start it slow just to stir for a minute, and then I'm going to take it up to, on the KitchenAid, what I would call like a medium or low medium, in the 3 to 4 range. And I'm going to mix it pretty hard. This is going to mix for about 7 minutes. That's what I found to be sort of the sweet spot. 6-7 minutes, somewhere right in there. Okay, this looks good to me. It looks strong. And let's see what it's doing in terms of strength here. This is not what I would call full development, but it's a well-developed dough. You can see how with little effort I can get it to sort of pane. Call that a window pane. So I can get this out of the mixing bowl. You can let it rise in here if you want. But I have this little bowl here that's got a little bit of oil in it, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. And I like to just give this a little bit of a gathering before I set it aside. I just give it a little bit of a gathering. I guess you could call that a fold. I don't know. I'm just sort of organizing it. Don't put this someplace cold, right? Put it again in an environment which coddles it. We want those yeasts to feel comfortable, right? And so what I like to do, especially if I'm working in a cooler space, is here in the studio, we have a Broad & Taylor, which is a proof box. It's a warm, controlled environment. I love to put my doughs in there to rise. I don't have one at home, so I might look for a warm spot. One of my favorite places to let things proof at home is actually in the microwave, because it's a small, draft-free space. What I'll do is I'll microwave a jar of water for a minute or so until it gets warm and produces some steam. And then I'll put the vessel of dough in there to rise for its bulk fermentation. That's a great place, but the main thing is not where you put it, it's just that you're cognizant of the fact that it needs to be coddled. So put it in a nice comfy spot. This is a dough that I mixed this morning as a double batch because I want to show you how to do not only a 3-strand, but also a 4-strand that's easy and beautiful. A lot of the problems that people have with challah, we're going to address as we go along, but one of them is that we don't push that final proof far enough. In order to really get a loaf which is beautiful and sort of voluptuous, fully risen, expanding into all the corners, we want to really proof it a long time. So I point this out because it's good to note right now the state of this dough. This is a happy dough. It's well inflated, well risen. Okay, so let's divide it. If you're making this batch, you just take what you have, weigh it when when it comes out of the bowl, weigh it, and then if you want to make this 3-strand, divide that number by 3, and if you want to make the 4-strand, divide that number by 4. So I have 3 pieces for my 3-strand, and I've got 4 pieces for my 4-strand. Now, a lot of people when they make challah at this point will try and roll beautiful strands and then they'll go straight to braiding. You can do that. It works. But if you want to make it really nice and beautiful and have braids which come together easily and which are uniform and shapes which are nice and consistent, what I recommend is to first pre-shape the dough, which means we're basically going to get halfway to sort of the shape that we need to roll the strands with. Let me show you what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some tubes. This is a tubular pre-shape. And I use this when I make baguettes. I use it when I make, lots and lots of things. So I've got a tube. Now you can see that I'm going to let that rest for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to roll strands out of this type of shape. So I'm making these pre-shapes because I want my final form to be consistent and beautiful. And it's easier for me to braid if I start with strands which have this real tubular, almost like little pipes of dough. Now, it will need to relax before I can elongate it into the strands. So now I give it 15, 20 minutes. And if it feels like it's snapping back, then I just wait. I go walk around the block and come back. Now, very important, you want to cover these. You want to cover them because if they skin up, if the exterior dries, it will not stretch. Put them in a pan like that and grab another pan and put them on top. Then you don't even have to use any plastic wrap or anything. So I'll cover that and we'll come back and shape. Maybe I'll go for a walk around the block. You want to have a dance party? We should have a dance party. So these have relaxed for a little bit. I wasn't really counting, probably 15 or 20 minutes, something like that. So you want to just roll these as evenly as possible end to end as you can to a length of about 20 inches. And you may find that as they sit, they've got a little bit of gas. They're a little bit airy. And as I press, I'm actually taking that gas out of them. I don't want any bubbles in there. So I'm pressing with some, with some firmness down on the dough. So you've got the two choices in terms of how you braid this thing. Remember that there's the one method that has you start in the middle, and then there's another method which has you start at the end. I like starting at the middle because it's easier for me to finish the ends nicely. To the inside, and again, remember, you don't need to tension this. You're just sort of draping the strands. And do you see how with that little bit of taper, the loaf sort of finishes itself real nicely, right? Looks pretty. Turn it over. Just draping the strands. You don't need to add tension here, right? All the way down to the end. And you're done. Roll her over. And that's it. This is going to grow so much that what I want to do is actually have it on here at an angle because it's so big, okay? I'll show you what I mean. Now listen, this is an important part of this process, just like the mix, just like the water temperature, just like the eggs, all of these things. A very important part of this process is the proofing environment for this loaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into an oven that I have, which is off, and I'm going to put a little bit of warm water in there with it so that the loaf doesn't develop a crust while rising, okay? It's going to be in there for a long time, and I just want to manage that environment as best I can. I want it to be comfortably warm, and I want it to be humid, okay? So managing that final proof, a very key aspect of getting a nice full rise and beautiful loaf out of the oven. I'm going to put this in here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of warm water to this tray below. I don't know if you can see, I got a tray in there. Just want to make sure that there's a little bit of moisture, and then I'll close it. Okay, I start out with my sort of 2 on top of 2. Then I do that, and then I just want this alternating situation here. Okay. And as with the 3-strand, it's okay to have some space in between because these braids are really going to move, okay? Now, under goes over. So under goes over, under goes over, under goes over, under goes over. So I get my 4. And then I go back the opposite way. So I can start here. You can start anywhere you want. Under goes over, under goes over, under goes over, and under goes over. And then you go one more time if you have the dough to do it. You don't have to. under goes over, under goes over. Where's another one? Under goes over, this guy. And then under goes over. You can pull and just sort of tuck them in there. And these little ends, just hide them. Just hide them a little bit. It's not 100% necessary, but. And then I gently pick it up, and it should be adhered. And once I get it onto the tray, you can adjust it a little bit further if you need to. But that's basically it. It's a 4-strand round challah. Beautiful. And when it proofs up, people are always like, how did you do that? Tucker saw me. Tucker could do it. Okay, so our challah have been proofing in our nice, comfortable spot for about an hour and a half, and they look like they're ready to go. Let's show you what we got. It's kind of miraculous, right? I never get tired of the miracle of like the transformation of loaves from something that's just kind of like, I don't know. Look how pretty they are. So you remember the dough at the end of bulk fermentation, right? When I pushed my thumb into it, it sort of held the impression. These loaves are close to that point. They're delicate. You know, you wouldn't want to pick this tray up and drop it. It would probably just sort of degas. But they are well proofed. These plates look really nice. They're well risen. But they still have some strength. They still have a ways to go. So when we put them in the oven, you're going to watch these things go nuts, I'm sure. So you may remember in this recipe, I used 2 whole eggs and then an egg yolk. That left a white for the specific purpose of egg washing these. Why do we egg wash? Well, 2 reasons. One is if you want to put seeds, egg wash is a great way to make it adhere. And 2, eggs have protein. And as the loaves bake, it browns really well. So it's visual, it's beautiful. It's what gives that shine, that gloss that is so pretty and so compelling when you go to eat it. And I'm gonna be really mindful of not just hitting the top surface, but actually getting around to where that loaf meets the parchment, right? So I'm conscientious about like really getting under this side edge, getting underneath there and egg washing absolutely every bit of exposed dough. The other thing I've been doing lately is everything bagel topping. It's delicious. It's got a little bit of onion, it's got some salt, sesame seeds, all kinds of stuff. And remember that in the oven, these loaves are going to grow a fair amount. And so, I don't know, you want to be heavy with your seeds. Like don't skimp on the seed coverage. It's sort of like flip them up, put them on there. Okay, so let's get these in the oven. Is it possible to have a straight face when you're carrying bread this big? I mean, it's almost like cartoonish, it's so big, right? What I'm looking for in a good challah is a crumb which will shred like this. See that? It almost does what I call like a cotton candy. It'll sort of peel. You can peel it like this. It does that because of high quality flour with good protein content and a good mixing method as well. And you know, it's got a little bit of honey in it, so it's just like slightly sweet, but not so much so that you can't eat it with a savory course. It's good, right? It's warm. I mean, what's not to like? Challah. Beautiful, delicious, easy, versatile. These are the virtues of challah. Make one of these big loaves, enjoy it by yourself, share it with friends, use leftovers to make French toast or grilled cheese sandwiches, whatever it is. This is a great dough and I encourage you to try it out. Thanks for joining us for this video. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We've got so much more content coming along on this channel. We hope you're enjoying it. Stay in touch with us and we'll be back.